are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is a crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On SEC. I'm Zac Blackerby. Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC host. Where are you broadcasting from, my friend?
I'm all over the country this time of year, Zach. I was in Baton Rouge a few weeks ago for LSU Auburn. I was in Lexington, Kentucky a little over a week ago for LSU Kentucky. And now I am at Fenway Park watching the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox. So busy time of year for me always, but a lot of fun to take in. I know a lot of SEC fans who are either Astros fans or Braves fans based on geography. You know, if you're in Louisiana or Texas, you're an Astros fan. If you're in Georgia, Alabama, you're a Braves fan. So it's interesting. But happy to be here, man.
I just thought you were so into the music that you just couldn't turn it off for to record for a few minutes with me. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, we call this ambiance.
That's it. No, I think that's awesome, man. I think it's awesome. So as far as what Auburn has looked like so far this season, I'm really impressed with everything so far, especially after this Arkansas win. It seems like, at least around here, and I'd love to hear your conference-wide take on this, but it seems like the perception of this Auburn football team has really it's really shifted towards the positive direction about Brian Harsin in this program.
It really has. And, I was talking with a buddy of mine who does mobile radio this week, and he was saying, based on what the schedule is, right? I mean, do we have them at 5 wins at this point? And honestly, you could argue the Penn State game they were so competitive in and at least had a chance till the very end. This could theoretically have been a 6-1 team right now. But look, you take the 5-2. The question is, how many more wins remain for Auburn? Ole Miss is going to be tough. Texas A&M is going to be tough on the road. Mississippi State, you feel good about that one. And at South Carolina, even though it's a road game, you feel pretty good about that one. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl, we'll leave that one aside. But of the next 4, at worst, you say Auburn is 2-2, right? So, I mean, that gets you to 7-5. Is 8-4 crazy? No. I mean, because then you're literally just saying just split one of the Ole Miss A&M games. So, I think it's still doable. Look, man, if you get to 8-4, you're throwing roses at Brian Harsin. But I think even if you go 7-5, I think that's a hell of a first year for Harsin. Just, look, he inherited some good talent on this roster. Bo Nix was a mixed bag. We knew Tank Bigsby in the backfield was going to be good.
Sure.
O-line we had question marks about. We knew the secondary was going to be good. But I think you give maybe an A-ish grade so far to Harsin and staff.
Yeah, especially when you look at what Georgia's doing to other teams, and also Penn State's a good football team, and you went there and competed toe-to-toe with them. Look, I had this conversation with a guest yesterday on Locked On Auburn, Chris, but the most likely record, in my opinion, for Auburn is probably 8-4. I just think if you beat Ole Miss, you maybe slip up against A&M, then you're probably losing the Iron Bowl, or, maybe you lose to Ole Miss and you're able to take care of business up into the Iron Bowl. I think those are the 2 most likely scenarios with which both put Auburn at 8-4. But in that situation, if Auburn is 8-4 with losses to Ole Miss and Alabama, at the end of the season, Alabama's probably going to work their way back up to 1, 2, or 3, right? Just when it's all said and done. Georgia's going to be 1. Penn State, I don't really see them losing another one. If they do, they're still a top 10 team. And then, Ole Miss is probably a top 12, top 10 team when it's all said and done as well. So, I mean, it's 8-4, but it's a pretty good looking 8-4.
I think this is a big week as far as the Ole Miss game goes. So you have a week off here. I think, look, LSU, we know all the news that they made this past week with Ed Ogeron, and they're moving on from them. The scariest thing about LSU is they're playing with house money now. Coach O and his staff, they have literally nothing to lose. And when you have a staff like that is scary as hell because they could throw every trick play out of the book. The retort is, what are you going to do, fire me? They could, right. They become so dangerous. And so that's why I say, this week, LSU is at Ole Miss. If they go into Oxford and win that game, one of 2 things can happen with Ole Miss. Either they're going to lick their wounds and say, we got to bounce back and we have to beat Auburn, or they're going to start a spiral where, and we already know Matt Corral's not healthy. He's banged up from last week. He's going to play. But, man, like, if LSU beats them, are they demoralized? And does this start a spiral for Ole Miss where they go, well, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were, and maybe that's where it makes it even easier for Auburn. So just a thought there on how this week with Auburn being off, can maybe help them next week if Ole Miss loses to LSU.
I think so. And, I did a conversation with Chandler Wooten, Auburn linebacker and team captain. I mean, he's got his finger on the pulse of this team, but just talking with him, and then Auburn tight end John Samuel Shanker, he does a weekly segment with our ESPN radio station here in Auburn. Just talking with those guys and hearing those guys, it just seems like after that win in Fayetteville, they're acting different. They are very proud of what they've done to this point. They're feeling good going into the bye week. They seem a little bit more relaxed, as they should on a bye week. It seems like they're really capitalizing on it. I just think this Auburn team really believes in itself. And this team really seems to get along and like each other. You really get that family vibe. I don't know. I've been asked by listeners to not pick Auburn anymore because I've been wrong about like every game. So I keep picking them to lose and they keep winning. So I'm going to, out of respect to them, I'm going to pick Ole Miss. But like, I'm not. I think Auburn's actually going to win against Ole Miss next weekend. And then, what happens there. But I don't know, man.
I'm just saying that the A&M game is I know they're playing much better now, and they beat Bama, and they beat the snot out of Mizzou, but like, it still is Zach Calzada, and he could, it could strike midnight on Cinderella at any point, and he could, I forget what the Cinderella thing is, but she goes back to her old ratty clothes and stuff like that. Could be Zach Calzada, against Auburn in a couple weeks. So, I
don't think he's good. I don't think Calzone. I just don't think he's a good quarterback. I love calzones though. I think they taste delicious. You can do so much with them. But it's just like A&M as a whole. I just watched them play, Gordy, and even against Alabama, I'm like, how are they doing this? Like, this isn't who they are. This is an exception of the rule of who Texas A&M is. I'm just not buying it. And I think by the time Auburn plays in College Station against the Aggies, that whole mindset of, well, we beat number one, we were the people to take down Alabama. I think that emotional high is going to go away. It's like, I don't think that win's going to do anything for you that late in the season, but I don't know. We'll see. I think they've got a lot of talent. I think they're a more talented roster than Auburn. I just don't think it's going to be, I just don't think this is their year. I don't really think they believe in what they're doing right now.
And look, all that aside, we threw the Iron Bowl out the window, but let's just see what Alabama does the next couple of weeks. We know they've been susceptible against the run, against A&M, and against Florida. If Auburn keeps getting better, who knows? Maybe they can play ball control, get some turnovers, and they're in that Iron Bowl till the very end.
Maybe. They got to learn how to run the ball. I mean, the storyline going into LSU, I think I hopped on Locked On SEC to talk about this, was, all right, Auburn should be able to run the ball because everybody can run the ball against LSU. They weren't able to. Okay, they're going to be able to run the ball against Arkansas. Everybody can run the ball against Arkansas. Arkansas changed what they did a little bit. They went to a 4-man front. They've been primarily doing a 3-man front. So they switched things up a little bit, but still, Auburn wasn't able to run the ball. And that's an issue. And it's weird because Auburn's 2 running backs are really, really good, but they just can't get any separation. And a lot of it's play calling too. They kind of gone with Bo Nix through the air, and especially since they've kind of found some guys to step up in the receiving end. But I think to beat Alabama, you're going to have to learn how to run the football. And it seems like that's a focus during the bye week and all of that. But we'll see if they can run it against Ole Miss in 2 weeks. But I don't know. People are going to be sweating it out, Gordy. People are going to be sweating it out. And boy, do we have some friends that can help with folks sweating it out.
Yeah, if you're going to sweat, don't let them see you sweat, right? And that's why our friends over at SweatBlock, they want to take care of you so that people don't see your sweat. If you haven't tried SweatBlock yet, you need to go check them out at SweatBlock.com. You talk to anybody out there. Take a soccer player, for instance, a great success story. There was an avid soccer player, heard us talking about SweatBlock, thought it was too good to be true. He was always the wettest guy after practice and games, soaking wet. He thought he'd give SweatBlock a shot, tried it under his armpits. The next practice, his pits were dry while everything else was wet. Now he's a true believer. So there you go. Locked On listeners. They are loving SweatBlock. You can stop excessive sweat for up to 7 days per use. It's doctor created, doctor recommended. They give you the dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't help keep you dry, you get your money back. It's not just for armpits. You can use it on your chest, your back, your feet, your hands, anywhere. And I mean anywhere. You know what I'm saying, Zach? If you or someone you care about is dealing with excessive sweat, you have to go check out SweatBlock. You can get them today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. You can also find them at Amazon and CVS. 20% off, sweatblock.com.
Gordy, what have you thought about the SEC as a whole so far this season?
It's been interesting. I mean, I think, we kind of thought Georgia's who we thought they were. I was saying before the season, I thought Bama would trip up somewhere. And my prediction before the season was that they would lose at A&M. And I thought they'd run the table the rest of the way. Now, the difference is I thought A&M would be undefeated at that point, and I thought Haynes King would be playing well at quarterback. It's a different story. A&M sitting there with 2 losses, and they get the loss on Alabama. LSU's not as good as I thought they would be. I thought this would be a year Coach O would take that next step. Obviously, he's dead man walking now. But a lot of other teams, have been who we thought they were. Vandy's who we thought they were. Sure. Mizzou's probably a little worse than we thought they were. Eli Drinkwitz may start to have to start updating that resume real soon.
Yeah.
South Carolina is where we thought they were. They had a couple early season losses, but Shane Beamer obviously just doesn't have the horses yet. Tennessee, what a nice surprise they've been. Hendon Hooker, been really good at quarterback. Tyon Evans in that backfield. I think Josh Heupel, that's a sleeping giant, man. Just looking ahead, for 2 years from now, if he starts to get some good recruits in there, I think Tennessee is going to be on top, back on top in the East competing. Kentucky, can't say enough about Mark Stoops. The question is the wandering guy going to catch him eventually? Is the program going to come along and try to steal him away? But
he's still there. I cannot believe he's lasted in that position as long as he has.
Well, look, he's in a great spot where Kentucky keeps upping. They're willing to up his pay, his assistants' pay, and he has no pressure there. Like, they love what he's given them, and if he falls back and has a 5-loss season next year, they're going to be fine with that. Like, there's going to be no pressure on him because they're like, we're Kentucky. So, I think they've been a nice surprise. Ole Miss is probably right where we had them. We thought they would have 1 or 2 losses at the end of the year. What's going to be interesting to watch, Zach, once the season nears the end, is if what happens that we think is going to happen is Georgia's going to be undefeated and Alabama's going to have 1 loss in the SEC championship game. A couple things can happen here. Georgia beats Bama. Georgia's going to the playoff. Bama is probably going to a New Year's Six Bowl, right? Or, the appeal is going to be there, but they're going to have 2 losses at that point. What if we have a 1-loss Ole Miss and a 1-loss Kentucky? Do either those teams make a great pitch for a New Year's Six Bowl? If Bama beats Georgia and Georgia has their first loss, Bama's only got the 1 loss, both of them are in the playoff.
Right.
And then that's easy. It opens the door for Ole Miss or Kentucky to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. But it's just something interesting to see what's going to happen. I know Kentucky fans are really hoping to run the table, finish out, and go to a New Year's Six Bowl. Like, they want that more than anything. I'm sure Ole Miss fans are probably the same way. Lane Kiffin's going to try to win Matt Corral the Heisman. I know he's banged up right now, but they're going to, he's going to go pedal to the metal and say, we're trying to pad Matt Corral's stats and win him the Heisman and put the mark in Oxford on that note. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, I guess, like we talked about already, Auburn, I think, maybe feeling a little bit ahead of schedule year 1 under Harsin, and Mississippi State, Arkansas just, look, man, they're good. They're just, the schedule's too brutal. Like, Sam Pittman needs to go sit in his AD's office and go, dude, let's get me some Nicholls States, get me some Citadels, get me some teams that can, get me some easy W's, because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that was a narrative that I saw after the game this past weekend when they lost 3 in a row. It's like, oh, okay, Arkansas is not as good as we thought. It's like, no, they can still be good and lose to 3 teams that are better than them. Like, I don't think there's not 20 teams in the country better than Arkansas. I don't think. And especially when you put the gauntlet of what they've had to do. I mean, they've got the toughest schedule in the country, but at a lot of different metrics, depending on what you're looking at. So I'm right there with you. I'm a big fan of what Coach Pittman's done, and I'm a big fan of, watching the Arkansas Razorbacks. They just, looks like they just kind of got tired there and beat up over the course of a few weeks.
Here's something to watch, though, Zach, is the CEO model. It became popular a couple years ago in college.
Right.
Dabo's a little bit like that. I think they were thinking that this way at a couple different schools, but LSU was the big one where, Coach O's a D-line coach, but he doesn't specialize in overseeing the defense. They said, let's put this guy, who'll be the face of our program. He'll be a premier recruiter, and he'll have 2 great assistants. Sam Pittman is the same, follows the same model. Great recruiter, good line coach, but doesn't like specialize in that side of the ball. So he's got 2 fantastic coordinators, Barry Odom and Kendall Briles. Both those guys had some interest last offseason. They were able to keep him around. What happens if one or both those guys leaves this offseason? Who does Sam Pittman replace them with? And if he misses, like Ed Ogeron misses, things could spiral very quickly for Sam Pittman. It sucks because, much like Coach O, he's so likable. He's a nice guy. Everybody likes Coach O. Everybody likes Sam Pittman. But that thing could go south in a hurry if they lose one of Briles or Odom or both, and they miss on whoever the replacement hires are.
The difference, though, is Arkansas, their expectations are a little different. Kind of like the Kentucky thing we were talking about with Stoops. I think he can go, 500 for a few years in a row and still have a job up there.
Oh, yeah, they're still licking their wounds from the Chad Morris days and Brett Bielema. But, yeah, he won't be run out in 2 years like Coach O was after winning the title. But I'm just saying, I think we're going to get back to hiring the head coaches that are, okay, this is an offensive guru. He's going to call the plays. He's going to, kind of like Lane Kiffin. I know he's got Jeff Lebby helping call him plays now, but, go with the guy who specializes. Either he's an offensive guy or he's a defensive guy, and he oversees everything on that side of the ball as opposed to, no, I'm just going to defer to my assistants.
Well, and that was something that Auburn folks had to get used to because Gus would go back and forth on okay, I'm going to go call plays. Okay, I'm about to get fired, so I'm going to bring an offensive coordinator. I'm going to let him call plays. I'm going to do the CEO thing. And then he'd be like, no, that wasn't working. So I'd go back and forth. But he was always an offensive guy. And Harsin is an offensive guy, but it really seems like it's Mike Bobo's offense. And it seems like it's Derek Mason's defense. And Harsin's just kind of got a hand in a little bit of and a little bit of everything. And I think that's the way to go if you can do it. It's just kind of the thing where how many good coordinators are out there in any given offseason? You know what I mean?
When you get a good coordinator, can you keep them? Can you hang on to them? I mean, it's so often it's like LSU, they struck gold with Joe Brady. He wasn't even the OC. He was the passing game coordinator. Steve Ensminger was still calling plays, but boom, 1 year of success, that guy's gone. So yeah, it's that constant battle of you want good coordinators, you want good names, and maybe Auburn's in a good spot right now with Derek Mason and Mike Bobo. Is a team going to come calling, looking for them to be head coaches? And if it is, is it a middle tier? Is it like a Western Kentucky? And if you're Derek Mason, why would you jump back into head coaching at a Western Kentucky when you're in a really good spot as a DC at Auburn?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, coaching staffs, it's all about the parts, right? Kind of like your automobile, Chris Gordy. And today's show is brought to you by the best place to get parts for your automobile, rockauto.com. You can save time and money when using rockauto.com. Why choose to spend more money for the same parts at a chain storefront or a car dealership? Those places just rip you off. rockauto.com, they're not about that. They are a family business, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer. Doesn't matter who you are. Go check it out yourself. Their website is very easy to use, and they've got a ton of options. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car, truck, or SUV. Right? Locked On Auburn in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. That's at rockauto.com.
Also want to remind our listeners, Zach, and they know this, we've been telling them about it all season long. If you have not signed up yet at BetOnline, do yourself a good service right now and go sign up. They're back and better than ever. They got a new website. Start of basketball season is here. We got plenty of SEC hoops. We got the NBA back, college. All the college sports are going to be going on from football to basketball. And BetOnline remains your number one spot for all things basketball and football action this season. You can go check out their new website. You can do it on your mobile device, your desktop, whatever. Sign up today. If you've never signed up before, you get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. They got you covered, whether it's basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, everything you can think of. They have got it for you with some amazing offers over at betonline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
So we got a few minutes left in this crossover, Gordy. We talked a little bit about LSU and Ole Miss. That's obviously going to be the game that Auburn folks care most about. But what else are you looking for around the conference this weekend? Arkansas taking on Arkansas Pine Bluff, so we can throw that one out. But
Yeah.
what other matchups are you interested in?
Well, let me just say on the LSU Ole Miss game is interesting. It's the 2:30, 3:30 Eastern game on CBS. Yeah. It's the Arch Manning game. Arch Manning's going to be in attendance, and they have made this the game where they're going to honor Eli Manning. They're going to retire his jersey. They already paid him Manning in the end zones. Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing. They're doing this with Arch in the building, putting his name on everything, saying, look what we're doing to your Uncle Eli. We'll do the same thing for you. So that's just something worth keeping an eye on. I had a buddy tell me yesterday he had a gut feeling if Arch had to pick a school right now, it would either be Clemson or Texas. So that would keep him out of the SEC. But, Alabama and Georgia are knocking on the door. I think every school in the SEC has at least extended him an offer. So just will be interested to see Arch Manning. I don't think he would follow. I don't think he would go to Tennessee. I don't think he would go Ole Miss. I think he would try to get out of the Manning legacy and go create a name for himself. But, of course, we got a whole other year before that has to be figured out.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a dud weekend in the SEC just because when you look at the point spreads, according to BetOnline, LSU Ole Miss is the closest one, and the line is 9. Gross. All the other ones are double digits. Tennessee, Alabama is interesting just from a standpoint of, look, everybody's expecting Alabama to kill Tennessee. I think it's 16 straight years of the third Sunday in October. They've been obliterated. Like, I don't even know why they still fight for this rivalry anymore. Like, we need to get rid of the permanent crossovers. If Georgia and Auburn still want to play, great. If whoever wants to play whoever, great. But the Tennessee fans, you're masochists. Like, stop doing this to yourself. And every time I say it to somebody who's a Vol fan, they're like, no, man, it's the history. I mean, I know we're just in a bad rut right now. Yeah, you've been in a bad rut for 16 years. Like we gotta cut the cord at some point and be like, when are we gonna finally break through and win? But no, I think if Hendon Hooker and Tennessee can run the ball, like we said, Florida and A&M were able to run the ball in Alabama. If they can run the ball, going to need some turnovers and all that. Maybe they can keep it close at the half. Maybe some crazy things can happen. If it was in Knoxville, maybe a little bit different. Maybe fans are throwing stuff on the field again, and things get a little crazy. But with it being in Birmingham, I don't think Tennessee can pull off the upset. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if maybe they could keep it close.
Yeah, the BetOnline line for this I think was 25. That seems too low for me. Like, you're telling me Bama's not going to win this by 4 touchdowns? That's just kind of, I don't know. I thought that was low. I thought that was a low one. South Carolina A&M, like, there's nothing interesting I can pull out of this game.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, can A&M keep this up, right? I mean, we've seen 2 straight weeks. They get the emotional win over Alabama. They get the dominant win over Missouri last week where they just ran wild with Isaiah Spiller and A-Shane. South Carolina, they're still building. Shane Beamer's did a nice job in year 1, but they just don't have the horses yet. But, can A&M stub their toe? Can Zach Calzada look like ugly Zach Calzada from earlier in the year, throwing interceptions and that sort of thing? So maybe South Carolina can keep it close if Calzada's making mistakes there. But, yeah, I think this is one that A&M gets another win in their pocket, and they keep on rolling. What's
your favorite type of calzone, Gordy? What do you typically get in a calzone?
Meatball.
Okay. All right.
Got to go meatball, pepperoni, cheese. Just throw it all in there for me. I'll eat it.
What kind of calzone would Calzada be? What's one that's kind of consistent? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
He's like an extra cheese calzone where, maybe one day you had bad cheese in there and it just didn't taste right.
Or it didn't melt evenly, like it was kind of blotchy inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then one night against Alabama, it just all the spices hit right, and it was just the perfect cheese. So probably the extra cheese.
Okay. All right. Hey, fair enough.
Mississippi State is at Vanderbilt.
Gross. Disgusting.
Will Rogers has a little shoulder issue, so that's just something worth keeping an eye on. Jack Abraham, their other quarterback, is not even with the program right now, Mike Leach announced. So that one will be one just keep an eye on. I know Vandy's going to go with Mike Wright at quarterback. Ken Seals, he's got an injury. So it could be a battle back on quarterbacks. I think Will Rogers is going to try to play through it. But, man, what do you do if you're the air raid offense and your quarterback can't throw? What do you do? So
you find another quarterback. I think that's what you do. Is Mike in the hot seat in your mind?
One of my bold predictions before the season was that Mike Leach would be fired at the end of the season. I think he's knocking on the door. I mean, he's 3-3. If he finishes 6-6, is that enough to do it? Maybe not, because Mississippi State is maybe not as pressure cooker, I guess, as an Auburn or an LSU that might say this is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. But if he gets this win, he's got 4 wins. I think they lose to Kentucky. Arkansas's a toss-up. I think they lose at Auburn, even though that was one of my bold predictions before the season that Mississippi State would win.
For some tweets that week. People have not forgotten that prediction, Gordy.
They'll beat Tennessee State, and then they get Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl, which they'll probably lose. So I don't know. If they go south and he goes 5-7, I think he's definitely on the hot seat and in danger of getting fired this offseason.
Gordy, where can Auburn folks go to hear conference-wide analysis every single day?
Well, Zach, you just search Locked On SEC wherever you find your podcast. We're here for you 5 days a week talking all things SEC football. And, of course, LockedOnSEC.com. Great way to find it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And for folks listening to Locked On SEC, if they want some Auburn coverage every single day, Locked On Auburn, wherever you get your podcast. Gordy, appreciate your time as always, man. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, Zach. I'll come from another ballpark next time.
Perfect. Zac Blackerby, Chris Gordy, you're listening to the Locked On Podcast Network.